Hi folks, and welcome back to another Make It video. This week I'm going to be making a camp kitchen utensil organiser slash tool roll. Now, one of the things I find infuriating at camp when I set up and I'm ready to start doing some cooking is not being able to find the tools and utensils that I need. They might be buried in the bottom of your bag, they might be strewn about all over the place, not really having a home as such. So I'm going to be making a tool roll which will accommodate all of these bits and pieces here that will roll up and store away nicely in your pack, and when you get to camp you can unroll it and you can hang it up, and all of the things you might need when you're doing a bit of cooking are right there at hand and out of the mud. Now, I do already have a kitchen tool roll, this one here, which I made some time ago, and you may have seen it in the odd video. It does make an appearance from time to time, but to be honest, I was never really that happy with it when I made it, and it does need tweaking a little bit. So I'm going to make a new one today. It's a good opportunity for me to resolve some of the issues that I had with this one, and at the same time show you how I made it. So the original one is made from very thin cotton canvas, and those of you who are into your Polish lavus might recognise this canvas because this was an offcut from when I did my Polish lavu modifications. I had some fabric left over. And this is one of the things I made from it, but because it's just canvas, it tends to absorb oils and grease and stuff from cooking, and it just starts to look a bit of a mess after a while. So what I'm going to do is make the new one out of waxed canvas, which is a little bit more resistant to moisture. You know, oil stains probably will still show up on it, but it'll be an improvement on just the untreated canvas. One of the other irritations for me was this end slot here. As you can see, these slots get progressively taller as you go from left to right, and this short one here was designed to take my Utensil. This is a little folding knife. I love these for camp kitchen work, so it made sense that one sat in there in my utensil roll. But the problem is, when you roll this up and pack it away, and it rolls from right to left here, there's not a lot holding the knife in. You can see it's sort of exposed there. And quite often I'd find that in the bottom of my pack where it had fallen out of that slot. So one of the other things I want to do is to add a little flap over that end slot to stop that from happening and just keep that knife nice and secure in there. As with most of my sewing projects, I'm going to use my sewing machine here. You could do this by hand quite easily. It's not a difficult project to do. There's not huge amounts of sewing in it, so you know, if you haven't got a sewing machine, you could quite easily do this by hand. I get asked quite a bit about my sewing machine. This is a domestic machine. It's a Jones 641 I bought second hand, and it's from the 1970s. Being an older machine, it's quite heavy duty. And I found that it copes with most of the things I ask of it. It's quite capable of going through multiple layers of canvas. I've even sewn leather with it as well, so you know, it's a decent machine. So if you're thinking about getting a sewing machine, my advice to you would be to maybe have a look around on eBay or in charity shops perhaps, or at car boot sales, and keep your eyes peeled for an older machine, and I think you'll not go too far wrong, to be honest. Okay, so I've got my component pieces. This is the back, if you like, and that measures 410mm along the bottom, 410mm up the side, but you'll notice it goes to a point at the top there, and that point is 60mm higher than that 410mm line, if you see what I mean. I then have this piece here, and that measures 390mm, so it gives a 10mm hem and a 10mm hem. And it's 250mm up the long side and 100mm up the short side here, and then I'll divide that up later on by just stitching lines down, creating these slots. This piece here, that's going to become the sleeve that the reinforcing bar goes through, just to give it shape. and that's 50mm wide by, I can't remember what it was now, 390 again in length. And then finally I have this piece here, which is 60mm by about 150, I think it was in the end, 160mm, and that one I'm going to fold over, hem, and that's going to become just a little closer for that first slot that I was explaining about earlier, just to stop my open on knife from keep falling out. The first job is to deal with this sleeve, which is going to hold the reinforcing barrel on the top. I need to hem this, so I'm going to fold over 5mm and stitch that over just using a straight running stitch, just so that the frayed edge is on the inside and it won't fray and look a mess. Don't worry about the other short end here, because that'll be closed in within the hem of the back piece. You just need to hem around the two long sides and one of the short sides. Okay, next up is the little closing tab for the shorter of the slots. This one I'm going to fold over lengthwise, and I'm just going to sew it along this edge and along this edge, about 5mm in from the edge, and then we'll turn that the right way round and that'll become the flap. Okay, so to finish this off, I just want to tuck this open end in on itself, something like that. And then I'm going to use this short length of webbing, and I'm going to sew that in there when I sewed this up to create a little pull tab for the closer. That'll just make it look nice and neat. Next is to do the diagonal edge, this one along the top here, of the piece that's going to form the slots. So I'm going to fold that over again by about 5mm, hem it along with a running stitch close to the edge. Obviously the inside of that top hem is going to take a little bit of wear from when you're putting things in and taking things out of the slots. So I'm just going to reinforce that with a zigzag stitch all the way down, and then hopefully that'll stop it fraying and looking a mess. Okay, so what I'm doing here is just hemming the edge of the back piece, but while I'm doing it I'm trapping this diagonal part in. Okay, so I'm folding it over, and when I sew that will trap that in there and form the join, if you like. I'm also going to go around the edge with a zigzag stitch, just like I did on the top of that edge, and that will just tidy it all up, keep it neat, stop it fraying. Now when I nearly get to the top of this edge section along here, I need to make sure that I trap this piece in as well. So I'm just going to put the needle down, lift the foot up, and just slide that under, so when I stitch along, I don't know whether you can see that okay, the edge of that is also sewn in and held. Just like this. That's now hemmed all the way around the outside, and that raw edge is dealt with that zigzag stitch going all the way around. The next job then is to deal with this sleeve, and I'm just going to use a straight running stitch, and I'm just going to stitch all the way along. Don't forget to leave the end that you hemmed open, otherwise you won't be able to put your reinforcing stick or bar in there. Right then, the next step then is to sew on this closure, this lid for my knife. So this is going to come down like this. However, I forgot to do something. I want to have a Velcro closure on here, a Velcro tab to hold it in place. And of course I've sewn all this up now, and what I meant to do was to sew that on there first, before I sewed all this together. It's a bit of a problem, but I can get over it by hand sewing that on there. If you're planning on having a Velcro tab, whatever you do, make sure you sew that on here before you sew it all up. Just so I don't make the same mistake twice, I'm going to sew on my little Velcro tab on the inside of this now, before I sew that on. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is to attach the strap so that I can fasten it when it's rolled up. Thread the webbing through the female part of the buckle, and I'm going to sew that on there so that is fixed and that won't then come off. And I'm going to sew that to the side where the shorter slot is, where we put the little closure on. And I want that to be in the middle when it's closed. So when this closes up, when you roll it up, you're going to fold the top of this over like this, and then you're going to roll it up. So I want to sew it in the middle along this section here, which is going to be somewhere about there. Okay, we're very nearly there now. I've just got a little loop out of that webbing, which I'm going to sew to the very top, in that sort of pointy top of the organiser. I'm just going to sew that on there like this. Don't forget when you cut webbing that you need to burn the cut edges, otherwise they'll fray. So just using a lighter or a candle or something, just melt the edges. And that will just fuse all those fibres together and stop them fraying. So to hang it up, I've just got a length of paracord here with one of those micro clips, the kind that you find on gloves to hold them, to fasten them together when you're not wearing them. And that's just going to go through the little loop that was sewn onto the top. And that can then be clipped around a branch or whatever to hang it up. Also through that loop, I'm going to put one of these stainless steel cables with the screw fastening, and then you can clip onto that any small items that you don't want to lose, like a can opener. These things are tiny and I'm forever losing these things, so at least that's fastened on there, and when I need to use it I can just unclip it and then it can go straight back on there again afterwards. Which brings us on to the last step, and that's something to stop it from doing that. It needs some sort of spreader. So what I decided to do was to make a takedown spreader bar made from 2 aluminium tent poles. That just slides in that sleeve and it keeps the thing in shape. You can reach for the utensil you want, and it's all nice and neat and tidy. There's another bonus about the spreader bar being made from tubing. They make really good bellows for getting the fire going. So yeah, I'm really happy with that. It's definitely an improvement on the last one. So there is no excuse now for leaving my utensils lying around in the mud or not knowing where they are. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.